Hi, I'm the Red Shirt Lady, and today I'm going to make my cornbread dressing for Thanksgiving. And we just want to start out with a regular cornbread recipe, but you want to double it so it fits in a 9 by 13 pan. One recipe would normally be a square glass pan like this, but for Thanksgiving I want to make a big amount. And please don't use the mixes because they have so much sugar in them, and this is a savory dish. You don't want it to be sweet. So just use a regular cornbread recipe, but I would even omit the sugar in that recipe. You can make this the night before because you actually want to dry out this bread before you make it into dressing. So right now I'm going to show you how I dry it out. I made this last night, and I am just going to dig in and make my crumbs. And I'm going to divide it between two other pans so that I can kind of spread out the crumbs and they can further air dry. We don't really want these to be moist or your cornbread will be mushy. Best cornbread is made with dry bread of any kind, or the best dressing is made with dry bread. And this can be left out even overnight again, so you can make this way ahead of time and then just have all your other ingredients ready to go the day of and bake them. This takes more time than a little mix, but it's not full of MSG and it tastes much better. Okay, now I have all the breadcrumbs that I let dry out for our dressing. I put them all in the bigger pan. This is more like a lasagna pan. So I started out with a 9 by 13 of breadcrumbs, and I ended up with 10 cups of crumbs if you're counting. I went ahead and greased this pan before I put them in so I can just mix everything in it as I go and then stick it in the oven. So I am going to put a stick of butter and start melting it. And this is what we're going to saute our vegetables in. You also want to have some butter in the dressing itself, so that's why we're using so much, because part of it will just be to wet the dressing. Okay, so let's come over here. We're going to cut the vegetables. We're going to use celery and onion. So I usually cut off the end of the celery, and we don't want big chunks of celery that we're biting down on. So I usually split the stalk like this before I cut it. And you can use these ends almost to the end as long as it's not all dried out and brown looking. Won't hurt anything. So I'm going to add that to my celery batch here. And then I'm going to take sage leaves. I like to use plenty, but it's to taste. Fresh is so much better, but if you only have dried, you can use dried. You would want to use a little bit more then. Put them in a little bunch, and then I'm just going to slice them real thinly. And then I'm going to go back and make those smaller. This does not have to be sauteed, just add it right into the breadcrumbs. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Then I'm going to put my celery in first. It takes a tad longer to saute than onions do. Turn it down just a little bit so my butter doesn't brown too much. And on occasion I have even put some bacon grease in here to give it flavor if I don't have a lot of broth from whatever bird I'm cooking to add to this, because we will need to add broth later to this dressing. So if you don't have any, a little bacon grease in the sauteing won't hurt. I'm going to add my onions. So I would normally wait a little bit longer. And we'll let those saute for a bit. Okay, now I have got my onions and celery sauteed, and I have let them cool pretty thoroughly. You can see what they look like when they're done. And I have about 2 cups of broth that I have set aside, which I have also let cool. If you can get this off of pan drippings, it's a lot better than pre-made broth. So we're going to add this in. We want it cool because we're going to put eggs in as well, and we don't want to scramble the eggs. I'm going to put about 2 teaspoons of salt, half teaspoon of pepper. I'm going to sprinkle garlic powder over. You could put raw garlic in when you saute your onions and your celery. That's probably about a half teaspoon, but this incorporates better. Put my egg in, and this is going to help hold it all together, help it be firm after it cooks. And I'm just going to add part of my broth at a time until I think it's of a good consistency. So, putting in about a cup. I'm just going to go ahead and mix it all with my hands. Okay. There's still some, it's still pretty dry, and it's going to get drier as it cooks, and you don't want it to be too dry. And you don't really want to add water to this. You want it to be broth and butter, otherwise it's never going to firm up. It's just going to be soggy. Okay, when it's able to start sticking together like that, it's ready. So that's enough. So I'm going to spread it out, kind of pat it down a little bit. I like nuts on the top of mine, so I've got about a half cup chopped pecans, and I melted a tablespoon of butter so that they will brown nicely, but I'm not going to put it in all of it. Just going to sprinkle it like that and bake it 350 for about a half an hour. When the edges are brown, it's done.